Thank you for staying with us. As the June inauguration for members of the National Assembly draws closer, senators-elect interested in executive positions are already making their intentions known. Key positions, like the President of the Senate, has seen various contenders throwing in their caps and lobbying the support of other elected members and strong party men. One candidate interested in becoming the next Nigerian Senate President and is deemed qualified and very experienced is Barau Jibrin, representing Kano North Senatorial District under the All Progressives Congress and re-elected for the third time. Mr. Jibrin could well be on his way to the topmost seat if his card aligns with other members of the Red Chamber. There are about 109 senators in the upper chamber, and as the race to who becomes the leading man intensifies, the big question is, what would it take to become the president of the Senate in the 10th Assembly? Joining us from our Abuja studio for this discussion is former APC presidential aspirant Garba Adamu. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Right. If you look at the papers this morning, this matter of scheming is presented on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. It says scheming as 16 aspirants push for zoning open contest, and Southern lawmakers want Senate presidency zoned to the region. We know that top-ranking senators are throwing their hat in the ring, making their intentions known. But for you, from your point of view, looking at the situation in the country, what do you think should form the crux of who emerges as the Senate president?
Thank you for this question. I want to refer to the last conversation you are even having when I came into the studio. I think you are discussing about the president-elect in keeping up with his own promise of excellent delivery. He was setting for best brains to be able to run his government. This is actually one of the most exciting things that makes many of us, trusted him with our vote, because we believe that he will need a capable team that will drive the success of the renewed hope program that is coming in the administration of Bola Tinubu by the grace of God after May 29, 2023, after swearing in. So with this, you will see clearly that the president-elect and the direction of the party, the new direction of the party, is gearing towards competence, as opposed to some other primordial things that have done nothing to make us who we should be as a country, to make us realize our potentials, to make us deliver the right promises, to make us to be able to consolidate and grow better. We need competent team. So with the drive towards the government of national competence, I think attention should be paid more to the competency of the individuals that are supposed to come to occupy high-ranking position in the government. And when we are talking about the executive branch of the government, we are also supposed to look at the legislative branch. And in the legislative branch, we have to look at the most competent of all the candidates that have shown interest to aspire for the office of the Senate presidency. Because without coordination, a full working relationship that is properly aligned with the mission and the programs of the executive, you hardly get it right when you don't have the right legislation in place. And that is why I believe, personally, and I believe that even most of the aspirants of the office of the Senate presidency knows that there is no person that is as qualified as Senator Barau Jibrin. Why? Because this man has started his career in the National Assembly in our elections since 1999. So he was in the House of Reps in 1999 after building a successful business and after also passing through an extensive program in different endeavors in his career. He was in Kano State Civil Service. He chaired so many committees in the investment and property development in Kano. He was a Commissioner of Science and Technology. He has BSc in accounting. He did masters, I think, different certifications in financial management and pricing. And currently, he is the highest ranking senator and the chairman of the Appropriation Committee. And for him to be able to sit at the height of appropriation in this country, especially from the Senate perspective, he was part and parcel that contributed to the success of the government of the APC. Because without proper appropriation, you can never get your policies and programs be driven right. If you notice what happened in the Head Assembly, because of lack of proper team management and proper structure, especially around appropriation, we have rancorous house. It was the Ninth Assembly that came and consolidate and bring order, composure, that tune in with the programs of the government of the day, the APC government, that enabled the successes we have recorded, especially in the second term of President Muhammadu Buhari administration. Who is responsible for that? The chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriation. Because every single investment that is done in this country to better the life of Nigerians have to pass through appropriation team. And you know, that house or the Senate has been more organized than it has ever been since 1999 because there is a proper coordination, proper order, proper structure of working relationship with the executive. And if we have this mature leadership that drives this success, why can't we allow him, to be able to drive the Senate the Senate so that we can be able to have a coordinated and organized and responsible and very responsive government to the yearning of Nigerians. That is why I believe Senator Barau Jibrin is the most qualified in every way. When you look at his personality, these are his personal antecedents in the service. When you come to the Senate, he's the highest ranking member. When you go to where he comes from, the Northwest delivered the highest amount of vote for the APC. Much more than even the zone for the president. The Northwest gave 2.7 million votes. While the Southwest bring about 2 million votes. So when you compare that, he succeeded very well in driving that success. Why? Because Kano State contributed to over 500,000 of these votes. And out of these votes, majority of which come from the zone where Barau Jibrin originates from. And that is why he's the only candidate in Kano, the only senator that escaped the Concosia tsunami.
Rewarded
yes.
For the votes they delivered. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You see, we are talking about government of national competence. And what is competence? It is not the work, it's not the effort of the Northwest alone, but we are talking about competence. And when we are talking about government of national competence, we look at what is the measure of competence. The measure of competence is performance, is the KPI. So the key performance indicator should pay attention to where more value is realized that brought about the government in place. And if we are going to pay attention to that, then I think the most qualified region that should be able to lead, in terms of driving the Senate presidency should be the Northwest. It should be the Northwest. So that's actually my belief. And if you come to the Northwest,
this whole thing is not just about the party. It's now about Nigeria. We should put into consideration Nigeria, don't you think?
Now let's look at Nigeria, right? The Southwest and the North came together in 2015 to form a government. So with that, we have the vice presidency coming from the Southwest, and then we have the presidency coming from the Northwest. Number 2 man from the Southwest, number 1 man from the Northwest. And now that we have a new government in place, we have number 1 man from the Southwest. What is wrong in number 3 man to be from the Northwest? Especially when you combine the 2 regions, they produce the highest amount of vote that kept APC in power. You always have to find a way to fit the area that gives you the best so that you can continue to incentivize their interests. A situation whereby you don't incentivize their interests, you will give opposition more opportunity to hurt us. And whatever we are doing, we shall be able to look at 2027. We don't want any obstruction or any issue at all with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed 8-year administration. We're not looking at 4 years, we're looking at 8 years. Asiwaju should rule Nigeria from 2023 to 2031. And if we are trying to make this kind of structure, we should pay attention to the areas that will need to be mainstream so that we can continue to maintain them, to continue to value them, to continue to appreciate them, to get the right outcome. And that is why I believe going to Northwest and giving the Senate presidency, most especially the most competent in the Northwest, the one that is untainted, he has no corruption cases, there was no rancor in his style of leadership. He has always organized himself. And for him to even escape Konkosia tsunami in Kano, you should know that the Kanawas believe that they cannot sacrifice him, especially Kano, no, they cannot sacrifice him for anybody because of his extensive giant stride development that he brought forth to them just as a senator. So if we do that, I believe we are keeping the side of the country that have recognized the value of APC, that have sacrificed to bring APC back into power, and that is ready to continue to be with the APC. And if you go to Northwest, there is no person at all. I think every other person in the Northwest, if we truly want to be just, we should surrender to the leadership of Senator Barau Jibrin, because he is the highest ranking, the most competent, the most organized, with a proven track record in serving exceedingly and excellently in running the Senate rules and Senate businesses, and also chairing the appropriation committee that drives the success of the APC administration. I think that is not a bad thing to ask.
Okay. All right, Garba, let's see from a different perspective. There's the issue of rewarding those who have contributed to the victory of the party. Of course, that is a good thing on the table. However, there is also the saying that after the politicking, now is governance. And if you're going to ensure a good governance, there has to be the issue of bringing everybody on board, because Nigeria is made up of a whole lot of multifaceted interests and regions and so on. Now, for national interest, for fairness, a lot of persons have said that, of course, that the Senate president should go somewhere else, considering the fact that the issue of the Muslim ticket was a debate prior to the election. That has settled now. And in the hierarchy of things, the president, the vice president, the Senate president is the number 3 man in the country. A lot of persons said that it should be going down to the southeast, or even the south-south, as the case may be, as a way of balancing some of these things. What do you make of the issue of zoning in that regard?
Frankly speaking, I think we should pay attention to competence and performance than zoning when it comes to our calibration of political power in Nigeria now. Now, let's look at the argument about the southeast and the south-south, as you mentioned, when it is zoned. When you go back to the southeast, for instance, we have some aspirants that came out, I think, under most eminently among them is Senator Ojus Okalu, a gentleman, very excellent gentleman. Similarly, when you go back to the south-south, we have Senator Godswill Akpabio, also a gentleman. All of them are proud APC members. We are proud of them, and there's nothing bad we can say against them. But then let's look at their performances in the outcome of the last election. You know, Ojus Okalu succeeded in coming back to the Senate by getting over 40,000 votes. Now, what is the vote of the president in that particular kind of zone, especially in the zone where he was able to win and come back to the Senate? It's like 8,000 votes. So when you can give yourself over 40,000 votes and give the president 8,000 votes on the same day of election, the same time, the same people, then it signifies the rejection. And we should not take rejection in politics as something we have to conciliate just by giving more reward to somebody who failed. When you reward somebody who failed, you are incentivizing failure. And APC with a Shiwaju administration, I don't think this is a drive. There is no way failure can be incentivized. Yes, we are talking about national unity, but unity is achieved when you come to the table. You can't go outside and be fighting and be negating and then come back to the center and say that you are supposed to be considered because you are entitled simply because there is supposed to be some unity. If we are doing that, we are incentivizing failure, we are incentivizing laziness. If Ojus Okalu can secure himself votes to come back and negate our party, negate our candidate, allow him to fail so that he can take survivalist approach, I believe he is doing what is called real politics, like the realism on the ground. Maybe on the ground, people will not associate with him as soon as they associate with the APC or maybe Asiwaju Bola Tinubu's candidacy. So he escaped. But that should be on his own personal mission. It has nothing to do with the collective desire of the party or the country. And our job is to have a less rancorous, less confusing, less activist Senate presidency or Senate leadership or National Assembly leadership. And the only way you can do that is with the person that is able to connect north, south, east, and west within the Senate bring everybody together, cater for everybody's interest, unite the Senate, and drive the agenda of the government. As one of the highest ranking members who is aspiring, that's Senator Barau Jibrin. Now, if you go back to distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio, it's the same thing. He has tried, he was able to come back, but what is the corresponding votes of the APC in his state? You know, when you compare that, no, there's nothing serious. I think with this, when you compare these things and you decide to incentivize where we have our failures, we can't conciliate a place of failure with reward, thinking that it's going to value. I can give you an example with the last administration. When President Muhammadu Buhari was in London, I think in one of the programs, he made mention clearly when he was asked about this 97 and 5%, that so many people were saying that he is discriminatory, you know, and eventually he invested so much in the Southeast, built second Niger bridge. I don't think there's a precedent in the history of this Nigerian democracy that has done so much for the Southeast that President Muhammadu Buhari. Yet, was he recognized? Was the reward he gave, you know, something that came back to him as on a positive note? Did the party make inroad because of the reward that was given? I can tell you.
The president did not do that to be recognized. He did that because he is the president of Nigeria.
No, I understand. You see, as the president of Nigeria, you know, we are talking about trying to ensure that we reward performance, right? If supposing the president built these bridges in the Northwest and the Northeast, especially the Northwest where he comes from, I'm telling you that some of the challenges we even have in the APC, we don't have them. But he decided to say, no, let me go back to that zone that are saying that they have been neglected so that we can give them more. We give them more. What are they giving us now? Some of them are even threatening the entire country. So is that the reward we are going to get? Is that how you can incentivize people that are saying that they don't want, you know, to be united? Is that how you do that? So what we should do is that we have to look at the root cause of the issue and address it before we go back to with incentive. If we give incentive, we are just shadowing the root cause, and at the end of the day, it will come back to fight us. There are some sincere or some issues that are happening that is causing the agitation from that side. So if you say you are going to give them Senate presidency, you are just shadowing those issues. They will come back again. So the best solution is consolidate power first. Have a united government. Have organized structure. Have a proper system in place. Less rancorous, less confusing, less activism. We have enough of rancor outside APC. Within APC, within our government, it's supposed to be very organized, very articulated, and we need to have a very strong takeoff. With that, then we can look into the root cause. I believe, as you are, Bola Tinubu is going to address all the issues in this country. The issues we are having from the south is the agitations. The issues we are having from the south. We need to go on a commercial break. I believe he's going to do that. But before we do that,
now, the conversation, Garba Adamu, has been in recent times with regards to our fault lines, politics of identity, talking about the matters of religion, the matters of our ethnicity and all of it. Yes, the president-elect has said that he is looking at a government of national competence, but we can't wish away the matter of national unity. No matter how competent you are, if the country is not united, competence has no role to play. We have to ensure that we unite the country as much as possible. That is what a lot of persons are talking about with regards to who leads the Senate. We cannot wish that away, don't you think? Uniting the country when we are looking at who leads the Senate president, the presidency of the Senate, talking about we already have the Muslim candidacy of the president and his vice, and they are saying now is the time to show us that we matter in the scheme of things.
I agree with you in the area of national unity. National unity is very, very important. National unity is what our party has been working for. National unity is what our candidate and now the president-elect campaigned for. And I 100% believe that there is no better person to fix our national fault lines than Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. 100% I believe that. But before we fix this issue, we need to have an organized government, first and foremost. You can't start fixing this issue by incentivizing failure. You have to make sure that you look at the competent team that will come on board, that will give a government. before you can now drive the concept of national unity. Without having a structured government, you can't be able to achieve that. And a situation whereby we keep categorizing the North as Muslim and the South as Christian, all those kind of combinations should exist during the presidential election, but in the area of National Assembly election, it shouldn't. Everything goes back to the zone. Now, when you come back to Northwest, it's a zone itself, it's a block. The block that has been committed to APC, I'm not from the Northwest, by the way, I'm from the Northeast, but that's the block that came strongly to support this party again and again and again. The third time, you know, of course, they have the presidency, which is President Muhammadu Buhari, who is going to, by the special grace of Allah, hand over successfully to Bola Tinubu on the May 29th. And then, by his exit, they still continued their commitment and committed enterprise to APC success. Then it is very important for them to be compensated with minimum of number 3 position. And with that, the highest and the most competent person to lead that position is Senator Barau Jibrin. That's the basis of the argument. It has nothing to do with religion here. We are talking about the zone that performed excellently well. And if we don't do that, you know, we have a lot of risks that is happening around that same zone, especially as we approach this 2027. We have in Kano the rise of a certain movement called Conquasia, and they are doing a lot of things to see that they expand their tentacles to the Northwest zone. And that Northwest zone gives us the highest amount of block. We should not give them a single excuse with a reason why they should say that they have done their best and they have been jettisoned. We should not give that excuse. And the only person that is able to counter the rise of this Concosia by his craftsmanship in driving excellent politicking is the same Senator Barau Jibrin who defeated the same Concosia in the same Kano state. So we have to be able to be mindful of that, and we have to look at the computation and the permutation of 2027. It's very, very important. And it's also very, very important that, you know, the North has a lot of pact with the president-elect. There are a lot of promises, about 19 promises that Bola Tinubu promised to deliver to the North. And for him to be able to successfully drive these successes, to be able to fulfill these promises, he needs people that understood clearly how these things can be implemented, not just from the executive, but from the legislation, so that yes.
All right, Garba, let me ask you this, because in everything you have said, you've talked about issues of competence, which every Nigerian yearns for. However, there are also the issue of the people's wish and feelings, which is part of how people react to things generally. As a way of moving Nigeria forward, what is your own advice in the area of balancing religion when it comes to the hierarchy of officers of the Federal Republic?
Yes, my advice in this is, after looking at competency and appreciating performances and compensating them appropriately and making sure that these structures are properly organized to continue a purposeful, result-driven government, the next thing is to see how we can be able to ameliorate our national fault lines. I think we have still another position. We have the Speaker of the House of Assembly, House of Representatives. The Speaker can go to the Christian. It's not a bad deal. I don't like to be mentioning religious, Muslim, Christian kind of thing or this. You can pick, maybe you can give the Speaker of the House of Representatives, you know, to the South. It's not a bad deal. It's not a bad deal to be able to do that. But I believe, me personally, I think we should pay attention to competency. People that are interested, people that have invested, people that are determined, people that want your success are the people you need to make sure they succeed. If we do it that way, eventually we will incentivize those people that are staying from the outside to come in. But the situation whereby they fail, we give them. They fail again, we keep giving them. They keep failing, we keep giving them. We're incentivizing that. So let's compensate. Let us work with the people that are with us first, so that the people that are not with us, they will see why they should join us. They will see why they need to come. This is politics. And in politics, we are talking about practicalities, realism. And the realism is the numbers. And they don't lie. So you have to pay attention to where the numbers come and then give better numbers to those places where numbers come so that the numbers can keep coming. This is just easy. This is just pure commonsensical. So a situation whereby we keep saying, no, let's carry this thing, let's compensate these people, national unity, feelings of euphoria, this one, that one. The reason why we have not made significant progress in ameliorating these challenges is simply because we keep saying these things, we keep doing these things, we keep looking at it as a position, is a compensation for a certain identity or certain regional or certain sectional or certain religious issues, as opposed to the people that will deliver the right result. So let us
what you are just
operate
saying. That's what you just said earlier.
National competence.
But that's what you just said earlier. You said we keep seeing positions as compensation, but that's all you have been saying.
No. What I mean by that is a position as a compensation for people continuously saying they don't want to be with you. It's not going to work. You have to carry the position and give them to the people that continuously are on the table and want to be with you. As simple as that. And the only way to do that is to make sure that you give attention, you pay proper attention to where the numbers are, so that you can keep yourself up first. Then, with just your team, you can find another reason why you can mainstream the people that are saying they are not with you. But a situation whereby you have a zone that predominantly voted against you, and then you went to, it doesn't just make political sense to some degree. Pay attention to where you get it, so that you can use what you get to be able to get what you don't have.
So how do
but
you
a situation whereby you
hand
just
of
pay attention
fellowship to other regions, knowing that just one region cannot deliver for you as a president-elect? How do you extend your handshake to other regions?
Yes, that's it. Now, when you look at the permutation that brought the presidency, you have some regions that came together. You have the Southwest, you have the Northwest, you have the Northeast, you have the North Central, and significant contribution also from the South-South. So that means there is no one region here. And in the South-South, we have so many members that have come in. In the Southeast, we have also some senators. Until we have about 2 states now in the Southeast, which is also a significant inroad. But when you go to the Northwest and the Northeast, we also have this significant inroad into the party, that brought in the presidency. So it's not a one region kind of game. It is a collective region kind of game. But when you're talking about the collective, you pay attention to where you have the mass so that you can continue to sustain the appetite of this mass for subsequent victories. It is very important. This is just a pure mathematical and commonsensical thing to do. That is why if you carry Senate presidency and give it to the Northwest, we will consolidate Northwest much more better and mainstream them and make every member of the Northwest a continuous member of the APC that will keep guaranteeing us victory in the subsequent election. And the only person that have that capability is Senator Barau Jibrin.
All right. Now, in Kano, from the last election that we saw, Kano also did not deliver the kind of votes for the president as much as other states did. We saw how the NNPP swept Kano. So if you were comparing someone like Ojizo Kalu or Senator Fabio, who managed to somehow, wouldn't you see the same thing as Senator Jibrin in the same way, managing, to survive in his constituency?
No. These are just completely incomparable. Kano gave 513,000 votes next to Lagos. And both the 2 states, both Lagos and Kano, we've lost in the general term, but we've won in the collective term. That is what it is. So, and Kano gave 500 and something thousand votes. The region where Senator Barau Jibrin came from gave over 200,000, nearly half of that votes. That's Kano North. Check it. So now compare with Ojuzo Kalu, who gave 8,000 votes, 8,000, to the president-elect and 40-something thousand to himself. In the same election, the same time, the same people, the same process, the same procedure, the same INEC, the same papers device, the same ballot papers, maybe separate ballot papers, the separate ballot boxes, but the same time, the same people. So you need to look into this. This is just pure commonsensical. So when you are looking at the collective, this election is one of the most democratic, most freest, most fairest election ever conducted in the history of Nigeria. And that is why you see some states, even though we lose, but the general...
Yes, let me ask you. The point there is, it seems every time we come from the election and there's going to be the issue of electing people and so on, we often talk, this zoning always comes during elections. Do you think that as a way of putting paid to this, we should find the metrics that should settle this issue of zoning by either constitutionalizing it in such a way that the moment a president comes from a certain region, you know that the other principal officers will come from certain regions where everybody knows where these things should come from, so that we don't always send up this issue of confusion and permutations during times like this?
Yeah, you see, if we try to constitutionalize this, we will continue to amplify our fault lines. 99% of the problem we are facing today that brings about these regional divisions, religious divisions, and sectional divisions have to do with this sense of entitlement that when it comes from here, it has to go there. When it comes from here, it has to go there. So you now have clash of interests. So any group that are obliterated in the selection of the person that represent their zone, they go back and start creating violence issues. Why? Because they feel like it is our own time, we are entitled. But the situation whereby a matrix is put in place, where KPIs are properly defined to filter the most qualified, the most performing politician, not just technocrat, but politician who also is a technocrat, who understood the value of playing the politics as it should be, nominated to come to the center. I don't believe any other person will have any reason to go and agitate, because this is a clear competency game and the person is obviously not qualified, and that's why he's not there. So if you constitutionalize and then create a structure where we create an alternative structure where you have the president coming from here, vice president coming from here, that's fine, because that's the major positions. Then other positions too, we begin to keep competency aside and pay attention to compensating individual or maybe sectional or regional or disinterest. It keeps amplifying the fault lines. We should learn from 1999 till now. What happened in 1999? We have the Senate president. I think it was Evans Ewerem. We have Adolphus Wabara. We have Okadibo. We have Ken Namani. We have Pius Anyim. All of them come from the same southeastern region of the country throughout the period of Obasanjo administration in a very successful, very rancorous Senate. What does it produce? Does it help to ameliorate the fault line? No, it increases it. In fact, when Goodluck Jonathan was the president, that's from 2010 to 2015, that was the time that the Southeast was compensated much more in this government. But that was the time we have IPOP. That was the time Nnamdi Kanu started. That was the time he started saying that he wants to create his own Biafra. You know, and this is the situation, the consequences we are having now in this election that passed. Why? Despite the fact that they got the best attention, the best appointment, the best recognition, again, Biafra came on board. You know, similarly, when President Muhammadu Buhari was in power, instead of us to have a consolidated, is in power currently, instead of us to have a consolidated note, we have bandits that are coming on board from the same region. Why? Because of all these kind of issues of trying to compensate, you know, for one region because of that or this. If we continue to do this at the governance stage, we will not get it right. We are done with the politics. We have the president from the south. We have the vice presidency from the north. Let the other team members that are coming to drive the success of this administration come on the basis of their competencies and capacities. And when it comes to National Assembly, we have to look at people that are driven by the party, people that love the party, people that work for the people that are very competent in Senate rules and businesses. Somebody like Senator
some will call
Barau
that
Jibrin.
compensation still.
They're supposed to drive.
Some will call that compensation still, because that is what it is. So,
Yes,
but we
you
have
see,
to leave the
you see,
conversation.
it's not a bad
now.
deal. No, it's not
Adamu,
a bad deal to compensate a performer.
Thank you for
Yes,
your
it's
time.
not a bad deal to compensate a performer. Yes.
No, that is talking from both sides of the mouth from you now. We have to leave the conversation here now. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Compensate a performer, but you don't incentivize failure.
Thank you very much for your time.